qualities, he thought his son to be the best of human beings, or the supreme being. Therefore, he gave him the name Rishabha. Responsible, please. When the son of Maharaj Nabi became visible, he evinced all good qualities described by the great poets, namely a well-built body with all the symptoms of the Godhead, prowess, strength, beauty, name, fame, influence, and enthusiasm. When the father, Maharaj Nabi, saw all these qualities, he thought his son to be the best of human beings, or the supreme being. Therefore, he gave him the name Rishabha. Except someone is God or is an incarnation of God, one must observe the symptoms of God in his body. All the symptoms were found in the body of Maharaj Nabi's extraordinarily powerful son. His body was well structured, and he displayed all the transcendental qualities. He showed great influence, and he could control his mind and senses. Consequently, he was named Rishabha, which indicates that he was the supreme living being. Om Jnana Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhupada Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vansha Kalpatrubhischa Kripasindubhyevacha Hritanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So Maharaj Nabi called his son Rishabha because he was the best of human beings, or the supreme being. And then it goes into all the symptoms of an authorized incarnation of God. So one of the symptoms of an authorized incarnation of God is that he's mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So if he's not mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a good chance he's a bogus incarnation. Next one will be at the end of Kali Yuga. And Prabhupada said, when Kalki comes, there'll be no preaching. So the Sankirtan paraphernalia will be sword, maybe a cudgel. I don't know whether it will just be Kalki on his own or he'll have people on the Sankirtan party helping him. So that's at the end of Kali Yuga. So authorized incarnation, body is well built. It's described as Nigrodha Paramandala. So there's certain symptoms of an incarnation of God. He has a short neck, broad shoulders, thin waist, red palate, red palms, red soles of his feet, eyes that spread like lotuses to the edge of the face. So these are some of the symptoms of an incarnation. It doesn't mention anywhere that they're fat and that they have frizzy hair that I've seen. So prowess, strength, beauty, name, fame, influence, and then of course the pure devotee. He also displays those symptoms. Devotee is very enthusiastic. He has influence over other people. Other people become inspired in his association to take up pure devotional service. He's famous. So these are all symptoms. So then Prabhupada says, if we accept someone as God, we must observe the symptoms in his body. And he was referred to as Rishabha, which indicates he was the supreme living being. Any questions or comments about that? It's straightforward, isn't it? Should we go on to the next one? So we've got a good purport here. Yasha Indra Spadamano Bhagavan Vashenava Vavashatat Avadarya Bhagavan Rishabh Devo Yogeshvara Pravashatma Yogamaya Swavasham Anjanabam Namam Yashat Shishikodataya Mai Pashashiki Jai. So I'll just run through the translation. Indra, the king of heaven, who was very materially opulent, became envious of King Rishabdev. Consequently, he stopped pouring water on the planet known as Bharatavarsh. At that time, the Supreme Lord, Rishabdev, the master of all mystic power, understood King Indra's purpose and smiled a little. Then, by his own prowess through Yogamaya, his internal potency, he profusely poured water upon his own place, which was known as Anjanaba. We find the word Bhagavan used twice in this verse. Both King Indra and Rishabdev, the incarnation of the Supreme Lord, are described as Bhagavan. Sometimes Narad and Lord Brahma are also addressed as Bhagavan. The word Bhagavan means that one is a very opulent and powerful person, like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Narad, or Indra. They are all addressed as Bhagavan due to their extraordinary opulence. King Rishabdev is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and therefore he was the original Bhagavan. Consequently, he is described herein as Yogeshvara, which indicates that he was the most powerful spiritual potency. He is not dependent on King Indra for water. He can supply water himself, and he did so in this case. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Yagya Bhavati Pajanya. Due to the performance of Yagya, clouds of water are manifest in the sky. Clouds and rainfall are under the management of Indra, the heavenly king. But when Indra is neglectful, the Supreme Lord himself, who is also known as Yagya or Yagyapati, takes the task upon himself. Consequently, there was sufficient rainfall in the place named Anjanaba. When Yagyapati wants to, he can do anything without the help of any subordinate. Therefore, the Supreme Lord is known as Almighty. In the present age of Kali, there will eventually be a great scarcity of water, anavrishati, for the general populace due to ignorance, and the scarcity of yogic ingredients will neglect to perform yogyas. Srimad Bhagavatam therefore advises Yagyai Sankirtana Praya Nijanti Hi Sumedasha. After all, yogya is meant to satisfy the supreme personality of Godhead. In this age of Kali, there is great scarcity and ignorance. Nonetheless, everyone can perform Sankirtan Yoga. Every family and every society can conduct Sankirtan Yoga at least every evening. In this way, there will be no disturbance or scarcity of rain. It is essential for the people in this age to perform the Sankirtan Yoga in order to be materially happy and to advance spiritually. So that's a nice purport, some nice points. The Yuga Dharma for this age, for Kali, is the chanting of the holy names. And if the holy name is being chanted, then everyone is pleased. The demigods are pleased, we are pleased, Krishna is pleased, and people who hear the holy name, they'll also be pleased. So we just have to be careful that we are chanting the holy name, or rather that we're chanting the living name. And that's a book by Satyanandan Swami called The Living Name. And he makes some nice points, which I'll share with the devotees if that's okay. Bhakti only happens in the present. Be with the chanting by bringing your mind to it. Our goal is to be utterly present when we chant. Lose the mind in order to find it. Interesting, eh? Lose the mind in order to find it. What do you think that means? Any ideas what lose your mind in order to find it could mean?
Can we learn to ignore your thoughts in the sense that if you,
Excuse me.
if you Johnny, if you've got a lot you need to keep an eye on, if you become inattentive to where they are, you'll lose them. So similarly, if we've got lots of thoughts that we normally meditate on, if we just become negligent of them, ignore them, then we won't be able to find them, which is good because it means that our mind won't go to like insignificant thoughts, but instead it will go to the holy name.
Any other verses on that? Lose the mind by neglecting thoughts that are not related to Krishna consciousness.
Another thing, or maybe it's a similar thing, is because we're so identified with our mind, is like totally ourselves, us and the mind, at least personally speaking. So lose the mind when you become absorbed in a holy name, you start seeing the difference. So you kind of lose the mind, it becomes separated from you. And then you find it, you understand that mind is separate from you, but you're trying to focus on the holy name instead.
Yeah, I was thinking also in the book Japa Prabhu, he was saying the mind isn't really the problem, the mind is in the mode of goodness. The real problem is the false ego. So if you can lose, like you're saying, the false ego is identifying with the mind. So when the false ego is purified, then you can recognize the mind for what it is, and you don't have to identify with it as being you. And also because the mind is, it's quite docile actually, the mind. It becomes sparked up by the intelligence. The intelligence is the energy which is scheming and planning things. So the intelligence is in the mode of passion. And the false ego is in the mode of ignorance. So the false ego is the culprit. And it's interesting, isn't it, that you can make the mind your friend. So you lose the mind is being very naughty, and you put it in its place and say, we're having none of this behavior. And then the mind, disconnected from the false ego, comes back and says, is there anything I can do to help? And then it becomes a friend. But to make the mind into a friend, we have to engage it nicely. We have to engage it like a spoiled child, actually. They say that when you join Krishna consciousness, the mind never agreed to join with you. So all the time you're doing your Krishna conscious things, the mind is tapping you on the shoulder saying, I never agreed to do this. I never wanted to join. Nobody asked me. So we have to make the mind our friend. So a few of the nice points. He says, don't be a passionate achiever, instead become a grateful receiver. That's a nice one, isn't it? That's also mentioned in the Japa Affirmations by Mahatma Prabhu, that we're so trying to get something out of the holy name that we miss, that we've already got it. We just have to hear the holy name nicely and sweetly listen to the holy name with affection. So we should be chanting with love. And sometimes it can be hard to do that, to chant with love. You're thinking, okay, well, I can't find any love to chant with. But we can, as Sri Ram was just saying recently in the Shikshastikam class he was giving, that the holy name is not an obstacle. It's not something we're trying to get around to get some bliss. It is complete in itself. It's not different from Krishna, and it's just a question of accepting that, appreciating the holy name. But the holy name may not reveal himself until he's ready to reveal himself. So here's a nice one. One can only escape Maya by falling in love with Krishna. So that's nice. Listen to and welcome the holy name with rapt attention. The holy name is a person who is very lovable. We wish that Krishna would personally come to our tongue and from there enter our heart. Attend Krishna with attention, present-minded, not absent-minded. Sevan mukhe, because mukhe refers to the face, and sevan is service. So turn your face towards service, sevan mukhe. So that's nice. I offer my chanting and loving service to you. And then somebody could ask the question, well, how do we hear the mantra and meditate on the meaning? And he gives a nice example. He says, infuse your mind with the meaning so that it becomes one with the meaning, like honey pervading milk. So these are all nice. So this is directly from Srila Prabhupada. He says, you haven't got to make a very exalted throne for Krishna. You can imagine that in my heart, I have placed a diamond throne and Krishna is sitting there. That is accepted and actually it becomes true. Even if within your mind you think that I have kept one diamond throne because Krishna is coming, he will sit there. That is not false. That is a fact. Now you create such a situation within your heart. Now Krishna is seated. Let me wash his feet with Ganges water or Jamuna water. Now I change his dress to first-class costly garments. Then I decorate Krishna with ornaments, and then I give him something to eat. You can simply think of this. This is meditation. It is such a nice thing. Anyway, you can sit down and think that Krishna is sitting in your heart and you are receiving him in such a nice way. This is not false. This is a fact. It is so easy. And if you want to try a Sankalpa exercise with your next japa period, think clearly what you would like your best chanting to be like. Absolute absorption, more focus, more connected. Try to discover your own answer organically. It is your personal answer that will determine the goal in your chanting. This goal will unlock the life you truly want to live. Next, reflect on your chanting at the present moment. Consider, are you inspired when you chant? Do you give priority to your chanting? Is it mechanical or enlivened? Habits you want to give up or adopt new ones? Go before your altar, reveal your situation, where your chanting is at present and where you wish it could be, and then present your intended practical steps with sincere determination. Pray that they bless your Sankalpa with strength. So that's coming up. Kartik is coming up. Whatever you do is multiplied 1,000 times. So if you have a nice Sankalpa about what you'd like your japa to become like, and how you're going to implement the steps to come to the stage of what you'd like your chanting to be like. Bhakti means crying while remembering Lord Krishna's holy names. So I want to see everyone crying tomorrow in japa. You can bring some tissues with you. Maybe a mop. Have to maybe mop up a few puddles. If you wish to advance on the path of pure bhakti, not many rules are necessary. Simply beg for the complete shelter of the holy name of Krishna and thus purify your heart and consciousness. So it's called the living name because if the name isn't alive, then our mantras become dead. We chant dead mantras. And one of the qualities of Rishabdev is that he's enthusiastic. Utsaha, this is the enthusiasm. But we don't want Utsamai, referred to in Madhura Kandamini by Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Utsamai is false confidence. And he says, sometimes a devotee will start devotional service and he will have the audacity to think he has mastered devotional service after practicing it for only a little time. So I suppose we all do that to some degree when we first take up Krishna consciousness. But we don't want Mai Utsaha, we want real Utsaha, real confidence, real enthusiasm. And that comes along with confidence. And well, it's interesting because if you look at enthusiasm it's composed of patience, confidence, following the principles, avoiding things which are detrimental, and taking good association, following in the footsteps. So really, I suppose you could say if enthusiasm was like a pod, and you were to break the pod down and dissect it, you'd find that's what's inside enthusiasm: patience, confidence, faith, and following in the footsteps. Question?
I just looked at enthusiasm origin. It says in Latin, enthusiasm means inspiration or frenzy, and it comes from Greek enthusiasmos, and from and to something. Be inspired or possessed by God.
Wow!
Based on theos, God.
Wow! That's amazing.
Means to be possessed by God.
So it's become corrupted, then, eh? Because you could say he's very enthusiastic about collecting butterflies, but it's got nothing to do with the real meaning of the word, then. It means to be possessed by God. Right. And that's where the theos is, from theos.
Yeah.
And theost. That's amazing.
Yeah?
Yet I heard that all the words originally were to do directly with God, describing God's glories. And then as we become more atheistic, the words just get used for other things. And then eventually, when you become really animalistic, then you don't need words anymore. You can just grunt at people. Like the caveman, he doesn't really chatter up, does he? He just grunts, hits on the head with a club. And so that's really all the language is coming down to be used for, isn't it? For sense gratification. So you don't need a very elaborate linguistic system to articulate animalistic sentiments. So that's interesting, yeah. And also inspired comes from in spirit. When the spirit is in you, and you become inspired. So it's amazing, isn't it? And then probably if you to look at the word love, because what we experience as love, some sentiment for somebody that we have in a very fleeting relationship in terms of eternity, compared with the eternal love that you experience in connection with Krishna, where that relationship never had a beginning and never has an end, how deep that love must go. That's based on an eternal relationship, as opposed to, can you imagine sitting at a fancy dress party, and this lady puts on a mask of Cleopatra, and you put on a mask of Napoleon, and you say, "I love you," and she says, "Oh, I love you as well," and then 5 minutes later, she puts on a different mask, and you put on a different mask. So our identities are changing all the time. So whatever love we experience in the material world is a very, very pale glimpse of what real eternal love is.
Inspired, another interesting, it means breathe, and to breathe, and it comes originally used as a divine or supernatural being in the sense of impart a truth or idea to someone.
Wow. By God? Or just by
divine or supernatural being.
Wow.
Like a breathe or inspired truth or idea.
Yeah.
And then you become like.
Yeah. That's real inspiration, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is similar to enthusiasm, isn't it? If you're inspired, then obviously you're enthusiastic. Then you'll emanate that energy and affect other people that come in contact with you.
It's coming from basically hearing the truth or idea, and then you become truly enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Because if you hear false things, you become enthusiastic, like utsamaya. And the real enthusiasm is in connection with God.
And that's why it's interesting when we say realize, because realize is what's real. So when we come in contact with reality, when we realize something, then it is coming in contact with what is real, as opposed to what is false. And that's the Om Namo Bhagavate Janma Yajaitan Vyadatarata Site Sugatsvara Tene Brahma Kuda Adhikam Mensura Teju Varivadan Itami Chabasan Shantam Svayana Siddha Nastakukam Champanam Dimari. To become free from the illusory representations in the material world, and to become free from being subjected as well to the illusions of the material world. And you'll only become free from Maya when you take shelter of Krishna, when you become inspired and enthused. And it's interesting because we say Krishna consciousness, to be Krishna conscious, but that means a lot. Actually, there's a lot in that when we say Krishna conscious. Krishna is saying, if you become conscious of me, he says, if you understand me, if you hear me, if you take shelter of me. So these are all, there's a lot of unpacking. When you say Krishna consciousness, there's a lot in there, inspired, enthused, understanding. Tesham evanakampatam aham agyana jam tamaha. The ignorance, as you become conscious of Krishna, Krishna Surya Sama Mayaya Andhakara. Krishna is like the light and Maya is like the darkness. So as you understand and hear Krishna, then that will dispel the darkness automatically. Any questions or comments?
A lot of the devotees find reading Lord Chaitanya's pastimes more tangible, you can relate it more to our present experience, partly because we know more about his daily activities, more about his life than we have easy access to in regarding Krishna's life. And similarly, in regard to the life of Srila Prabhupada and the present spiritual masters, we've got almost unlimited access to their lives. So, the question is it therefore, so therefore it seems difficult to fall in love with Krishna because it's more difficult to really understand Krishna's pastimes, because we only have, we don't have a lot of information.
But isn't it the Bhagavad Gita's ABC, the Bhagavatam? CC is considered the most devotees I know say they find it harder to understand. Although I also was feeling the same way as yourself, but it is considered in terms of confidentiality or advanced learning that the Chaitanya Charitamrita is like the topmost. Srimad Bhagavatam is more advanced, and then Bhagavad Gita is ABC. Now, what's interesting about Chaitanya Charitamrita, actually, if you look at it closely, what is actually going on is devotees are simply showing you how to access Srimad Bhagavatam. That's all that's going on in Chaitanya Charitamrita. They're just showing you as perfected sadhakas how to go into trance and samadhi and become absorbed, especially in the 10th canto of Krishna's intimate pastimes. That's all they're doing. They're showing you, this is what you do. You put your body inside this samadhi, you take a cup of buttermilk, and then you chant 192 rounds, and you're there in the pastime. Like I was just hearing yesterday, Mahaprabhu was saying, in the Jaiva Dharma, the devotees sit down for 1 week, and they attain bhava in 1 week. So when they're chanting, they're crying, So they're trying to show, well, this is how we access, this is how we get in. And once you get in, then everything will fall in place, because you'll see Krishna, you'll see the Leela, you'll see his qualities, and love will just flow from your heart spontaneously. You won't have to try and figure out how you're going to do it. It will just, it will transcend the intellectual platform. It'll just be, you'll be reinstated with something which you've forgotten, you see. So as soon as you see Krishna and the situation that you're in with him, it'll all seem very familiar. Shishigona Mai Prashashiki. And then you'll just take up from where you've left off. Loving Krishna is the most natural thing. It's all the things we're doing in a conditioned state which are unnatural and artificial for us. This whole temporary situation itself is a very awkward situation for the soul to be in. Everything around us is temporary. And by nature, we want things permanent. We want permanent relationships. We want permanent situations. And it's constantly in flux. So your CC is just showing us how to access the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the Bhagavatam is it. It's the summum bonum. It's what's going on. It's the ultimate reality. In fact, I'm glad everyone's sitting down, because when I read this out, I won't be surprised if at least one of you faint. So hold on to your Tulsi garland. This could be a pivotal change in your Krishna conscious career. Can we have a drum roll? Okay, here it comes. Radha and Krishna are the Lord and Lady of the kingdom of love. Our provincial world, constructed with props of a temporal drama, fall away to reveal reality. Our soul at last rejoices. Our mind steals the show with false identifications, and the chanting becomes background music. So this is all false. This is all a waste of time. And Radha and Krishna enjoying in the kingdom of love. That's what's going on. That's the ultimate reality. And Lord Chaitanya, he's saying, you get involved with Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. He's just saying, okay, get into this kirtan, and then we're going to transport you into the kingdom of love. The ultimate is Radha Krishna. Lord Chaitanya is, by his mercy, we can access that. Lord Chaitanya is offering that to us. What is Lord Chaitanya offering us? He says here, this is from Siddha Bhakti Chintamani. O mind, give up the prostitute of friendship with non-devotees, a prostitute who will steal the treasure of your heart. Don't listen to the words of the tigress of impersonal liberation which devour everyone. Give up attraction for Lord Narayan, which leads to the world of Vaikuntha. O mind, in Braj, worship Radha and Krishna, two philanthropists who give away the jewel of pure love. And then the question could be asked, doesn't Krishna consciousness simply revive your eternal constitutional position and nothing more? No. By the grace of Lord Gauranga, awards them the devotion, residence, and form of Brajvasis. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. And this is from Chaitanya Chandradaya Natika. So be it. I will go to Vrindavan. This is Lord Chaitanya speaking. And there I will accept you as my associates with my sweet pastimes. I will fill your hearts with bliss. To you who have faith in Vrindavan, I will give splendid spiritual forms like my own. This is what I will do for you. Those of you whose hearts are bound to me in this form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even if your rasas are friendship or servitude to Sri Radhamadava or Lord Dwapadish, or if your rasas are friendship or servitude to any of my other incarnations, I will make you into my eternally liberated associates in Goloka Vrindavan. So that's what Chaitanya Charitamrita is. That's what's being offered. Lord Chaitanya is coming down and he's saying, I want to take you back to Goloka Vrindavan. And Goloka Vrindavan is described, especially in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's the bullseye. That's the center of the target. And Chaitanya Charitamrita is just showing us how to hit the target. how to get there, how to achieve how to receive what's being offered.
One explanation is given of Lord Chaitanya's descent is that people just couldn't understand or surrender to Krishna. He's like a book Bhagavatam, as you are explaining, it's just like a visualization that he's manifesting how to attain Krishna by his own personal kind of actions and example.
You have the book Bhagavatam, the Bhagavatam person, and the book bag.
Usually it's difficult to understand Bhagavatam unless we see a person Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
So I was been reading a book called The Bond of Love. It's one of memories of all of Srila Prabhupada's female disciples. About maybe 200 of them give their recollections of their interactions with Srila Prabhupada. And 2 or 3 of them have said that before they met Srila Prabhupada, they were considering his teachings to be very unpalatable, like reading his purports and just hearing about or reading about or hearing second hand about his dealings with his devotees. But when they met him, they actually their hearts melted and they were, immediately all of their reservations and all of their fears subsided when they saw his personal interactions with the devotees.
Yeah, that's why it's hard to imitate Srila Prabhupada, but just to follow him. Because sometimes you may hear Srila Prabhupada saying something or read something that Prabhupada said and think, wow, that's really good. Can't wait to use that on somebody. It's a really heavy statement. And then you see somebody doing it, you think, oh, now's my chance. You go over and give them both barrels. You're a nonsense doing that. And it doesn't work quite the same way, you see. It's not the same potency or the same purity. And sometimes Srila Prabhupada's getting a little bit chewed up by a female reporter, and he's kind of chuckling like he's her grandfather and saying, quite cheeky, he's so endearing. And she kind of picks up, well, he's my well-wisher. This is just for my benefit, whatever he's saying, So if we can focus on that purity of heart and having that, pure compassion and love for the conditioned soul, then it'll be a much easier line of communication that we can open up with people. So that's something we have to learn to do. We have to learn also to love ourselves, but not in a kind of materialistic way. But we have to have self-esteem and respect for ourselves that what we're doing is of value, and that we can make some significant contribution to helping spread Krishna consciousness. There's a difference between shame and guilt. You can do something wrong and feel guilty for a day or two, and that's fine. But shame is something you can stay ashamed your entire life, because shame is something that you identify with as yourself, you see. So we have to get free from shame, because it can hold us back from performing devotional service enthusiastically. Whatever we've done wrong, we can feel guilty, a little sorry for it, and then we push ahead with enthusiastic devotional service. As Dhanavir Maharaj encourages in this book, The Bright Side, it's all about being positive. We have the most positive philosophy, really. I mean, Lord Chaitanya is giving us everything. He's giving us the topmost. Wherever you think you've come from, what you're going to get is the best. So you don't have to worry about where you are or where you've come from. all you have to do is fix your intention, your sankalpa. I want to chant the pure holy name. I want to be fully absorbed in loving service to Krishna. And I'm going to implement concrete steps to achieve that. That's going to be my sankalpa. Jai. Yaskam Guruvinda ki. Shil Prabhupada ki. Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo.